Welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. I'm Dr. Daniel Amen.
And I'm Tana Amen. Here we teach you how to win the fight for your brain to defeat anxiety, depression, memory loss, ADHD, and addictions.
The Brain Warriors Way podcast is brought to you by Amen Clinics, where we've transformed lives for 3 decades using brain SPECT imaging to better target treatment and natural ways to heal the brain. For more information, visit amenclinics.com.
The Brain Warriors Way podcast is also brought to you by BrainMD, where we produce the highest quality nutraceutical products to support the health of your brain and body. For more information, visit brainmdhealth.com. Welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast.
Welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. I'm Dr. Daniel Amen.
And I'm Tana Amen.
Today we're going to talk about depression. And unfortunately, you know more about it.
Way more than I want to know.
Than you want to know. Right.
In fact, it's affected my family quite a bit. So my mom had a couple of very, very serious episodes with depression. My dad was depressed, I think, most of his adult life. And I went through a really, really, really bad episode of depression when I was sick. So I had thyroid cancer. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer that had metastasized, kind of rare for the type of cancer I had. Came back multiple times, which meant multiple treatments and surgeries and all sorts of things. But it was not really prepared for the treatments the way I think I could have been, or maybe should have been. So at the time that I had to go through treatments, it was different than it is now. And they used to take you off of your medication for long stretches of time. So they removed my thyroid.
Thyroid medication.
So they removed my thyroid gland, and then they took me off of thyroid medication for a couple months. And I was not prepared for what was going to happen. I remember what they said. They said, don't plan on going to school because you're not going to be able to focus. Okay, well, that didn't did not prepare me for what I was actually going to experience. I was so weak I couldn't climb stairs. The brain fog was so bad I couldn't put a sentence together like coherently, and there was just this horrible fog. I couldn't add 2 and 2. And then the depression that came over me was this black cloud that enveloped me. And I think the combination, it wasn't just the thyroid medication. No one prepared me for much of anything. Here I had the biopsychosocial, spiritual, the 4 circles we talk about. So my physiology had changed. My psychology, the idea that I could even get cancer and have to go through this at that young age freaked me out completely. You know, the fact that I had to drop out of school, didn't get to, engage in my dreams while all my friends were moving on in school and doing all these things.
So you became
it all
socially
stacked.
more isolated.
Right.
And then spiritually, was there any of the why me?
Oh, no, I began to think God hated me. So I went from believing in God to thinking, well, if there is a God, he hates me. And then I started praying that God would just let me die. So I literally prayed that I would get hit by a truck because there was just no point to waste oxygen. And I just remember the pain. It's a pain you can't go away from. To this day, it motivates me. To this day, the fear of that pain motivates me to do things to never go back.
Well, and one of the interesting things, and you said depression runs in your family.
Right.
When you were a teenager, you actually figured out that if you exercised a lot,
right,
that
your
mood was better, your focus was
yeah.
better, your body image was better.
Mm-hmm. It elevated my mood, and it cleared the cobwebs. The only way I knew how to describe it at that time was cobwebs. So I felt like I'd wake up and it was kind of fuzzy. And then I'd exercise and I'm like, oh, everything's clear. Like I can think.
And so as we talk about natural ways to heal depression, exercise clearly is one. And many people don't know they use it as an antidepressant. And when they get hurt, when they blow out their knee, when they pull a muscle, when they get hurt, they actually get depressed.
Well, and you just touched on another thing. I couldn't exercise during that period. So the thing that I had used for almost 10 years at that point as something that made me feel good, on top of the medication, on top of the other, stacked issues, I now couldn't exercise. Yeah.
And so 2 huge issues. 3. It's genetic. Mm-hmm. So depression can be genetic. It
medical.
Can be because of thyroid deficiency.
Or other
yours
hormones.
was blatant.
Or other
right?
hormones.
I mean, they killed your thyroid and then they didn't replace it immediately.
Right. My mom.
And then you couldn't exercise.
And for my mom, hers started with early menopause. She didn't know. She was triggered in early menopause with some stress.
Very common.
Right.
That menopause can also trigger depression. And the major symptoms are you feel sad or blue, negative, that pain.
Hopeless.
Helpless, worthless.
Yes.
You can have active suicidal thoughts, which you didn't have, but you had passive suicidal thoughts.
Just wanting to die, yeah.
Wanting to die.
Like I would never do it. I just didn't want
you.
to live, right? And then the other things besides the hopelessness is I literally just couldn't will myself to get out of bed. Couldn't do it.
So lower motivation. Things that are usually pleasurable are no longer fun anymore.
Nothing.
Decreased concentration.
I don't even like talking about it.
Brain fog. Well, I mean, you know why. It's obviously important because depression has gone up 400%.
I know, but it actually causes like a PTSD reaction in me. Like, I just don't ever want to do that again. Like, it's so scary.
It is. It's awful.
Yeah.
Having had treated it for the last 35 years.
Yeah, I can just so empathize with people.
And it doesn't just devastate the person. It devastates their families, devastates the people that work with them. I mean, it really has a very negative ripple effect.
And I think, depending on your environment growing up, I think I was sort of looking back, I was kind of primed in a sense because my environment wasn't super stable.
No, you had a lot of stress.
There were a lot of
trauma in the past.
Right. So I was primed. I didn't handle stress well.
And let's just talk about, because I think you are illustrative of so many different things.
But you're the one who told me about the study that children who grow up in stressful environments, that grow up with chaos and trauma in their lives, that it has the same effect on their developing brains as a soldier coming back from war. The PTSD.
In fact, when we posted that, we got like 13 million
views. It was crazy,
views to that.
Because so many of us had pretty crazy upbringings. Mine was crazy. Okay,
and the chronic stress damaged your microbiome.
I was constantly on antibiotics.
Right. So when you have early chronic stress and often antibiotics, it's disrupting your microbiome and its ability to produce serotonin, the neurotransmitter that actually helps you feel happy.
So bad gut means you're more vulnerable to depression.
Were you taking birth control pills at the time?
I don't remember, actually. I don't remember.
Because that also depletes serotonin. Yeah. And so if you just look at the stacked stresses.
So in other words, I'm the perfect case study because of those stacked events.
I told you that when we met.
I know, I'm a psychiatrist's dream.
Right.
Whatever, I have no idea what that's supposed to
That's actually not, we didn't meet with you as a patient.
No, definitely not.
Right.
But it's, there's a lot of things. And I know every time I talk about these stories, people write to me. Because I never would tell this story. I would never. Do you remember that the first time you told me to tell my story? I'm like, you're out of your freaking mind. It took me decades to build these walls, and no one's going to see behind them. It's like behind the curtain type of thing, because you just think people are going to judge you for the awful stuff you've been through. But the truth is, the minute that I started talking about them, I couldn't even handle the emails and the messages coming into my Facebook page, because
the people don't judge you.
No, they've experienced it and they need to know that there's hope. So that's what I found out.
Since I have known you and you've been working really hard on being well, you've not had an episode of major depression.
No, but I know I'm vulnerable. So I am a warrior. So I believe in having a warrior mindset. You don't wait till fight day to start training. You've got to train every day. You've got to be prepared,
so
aware.
Let's talk about natural ways to attack.
Okay, well, I'm a little intense. So if you're asking me, yeah, a little bit. So if you're asking me, I'm just one of those people.
That surprises me.
I know. why do you think I married you? You are the yin to my yang. So I always say he grounds me.
By asking you, as we're talking together, natural ways to go after depression.
Yes. So, I mean, because of experiencing it and because I do have that little bit of PTSD, that fear of ever going back to that place, I just do it all. I mean, I literally do it all. So for me, having that 10 minutes to meditate and pray and ground myself, literally ground myself and focus on healing energy and gratitude.
Yeah, you don't let me bother you.
I don't.
I'm
like, don't come in the room. Don't talk to me. I don't care. Like, don't talk to me. Exercise.
You have boundaries.
I have boundaries.
And wait, so let's do one by one. Meditation and prayer fooled us because what we actually discovered is those increase brain activity and increase the chemicals that help people feel normal and happy.
Oh, I'm just balanced afterwards. It's very interesting. And then exercise for sure. So I start my morning off by hydration. So lemon water with some ginger, hydrating, detoxing, because your brain needs hydration. And then, fastest way to make it feel better is to hydrate. Then I do the meditation prayer, then exercise. And my daughter has that same desire for exercise as her medicine, so we do it together.
Genetic vulnerability to depression.
Yeah, she's more anxious, but we exercise together and she loves it. So every morning we go to the gym, and that's sort of our routine with that. And food. I mean, we eat ultra clean. And she got so mad at me yesterday. She's like, why did you pass on your digestion to me? Because she's so sensitive.
Which is what mothers do.
Right. She's so sensitive to food. So she eats probably cleaner than I do. I mean, she's that rigid with her food because she feels every little change in her diet.
And because she's a C-section baby, she didn't pass through the birth canal, that her microbiome didn't get loaded. And there's a whole interesting issue around C-section babies having more gut issues than babies who are born naturally.
Right. So, and then I take supplements. I am vigilant about managing my thyroid. And I have all these people write to me all the time about all the thyroid disease issues they've had and wanting to not take medication. I think it's a mistake. Okay, you're asking, as much as we try to do things naturally, now if you're just trying to balance it out and you're just starting and it's just slightly off, okay. But if you've had Hashimoto's disease, you've had thyroid cancer, you've had Graves' disease or whatever it is,
take your medicine.
Take your medication because it's too important and too hard to control.
You wouldn't try to do it naturally.
Absolutely. And I manage my hormones and I do supplements to make me feel better. And
especially omega-3 fatty acids.
Absolutely. Vitamin D.
And, as we talk about, depression's not one thing.
No.
It's 7 different things in the brain. And so you have to know your type. I wrote a book called Healing Anxiety and Depression where we talk about the 7 different types, or we talk about them in the Brain Warriors Way, or also in my newly revised Change Your Brain, Change Your Life book. So there's a way to talk about it. But basically, if you have pure depression without other things, SAMe and omega-3 fatty acids can help.
What about vitamin D, though?
Especially higher in EPA. Vitamin D is absolutely essential for your brain.
My vitamin D was like 13.
Right.
Never knew it.
Right, and you live in Southern California where the sun is out 330 days
And why
a
did
year.
no one ever tell me that? It's beyond me.
Right.
So
What's your vitamin D level now?
It's about 90.
And how much do you take a day?
I started off having to take 10,000 units because it can vary with people, not only but based on skin color, but also if you have a thyroid condition or if your gut's not healthy, you might need more. Now I'm down to 5,000 units a day. But I had to take 10,000 units a day for about 2 years to get it to finally balance out.
Right. And on BrainMD, we have vitamin D3, which is the supplement that's the one you should be taking for vitamin D.
My doctor
also,
likes mine high, though.
Neurovite Plus, our multiple vitamin, has 2,000 international units of vitamin D.
So I'm actually taking 7,000.
So you're actually taking 7,000. So multiple vitamin, fish oil, vitamin D. If you have the over-focused type of depression, worried, rigid, inflexible, argumentative, oppositional, things don't go your way, you get upset, then boosting serotonin can be very helpful. And one of the supplements I really like is saffron, because it's been shown head to head in studies to help support mood.
So do you remember when Chloe was young? She was very rigid, very inflexible, would freak out when things didn't, she got surprised or things didn't go her way. She would really freak. So on her chore chart, flexibility became one of her chores she had to work on, literally. It was a daily practice for her. And now she's not like that. She's actually an amazing child now, but we worked really hard on it. But she does take supplements. And she notices they help her not to be so rigid with like thinking things have to be a certain way with school.
Mood support can be really helpful. The other thing you do, I remember when we first met, and I fell in love with you immediately. It took you longer to fall in love with me.
What are we talking about?
But one of the things we did is we went to a Byron Katie workshop.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the skills I just think everybody should know, and they should actually learn it in second grade. And I have a new book coming out in September called Captain Snout and the Superpower Questions.
For kids, yeah.
It's about learning how to kill the ants, the automatic negative thoughts that steal your happiness and rob your joy.
Yeah, I had to work really hard at this idea of talking back to thoughts initially, really hard. And now I automatically jump to, is that true? Is it true? Probably not. And then turn it around. So once you get practice at it, you can start talking back to them quickly. You can turn those thoughts around quickly. But I worked at it, and it's not comfortable.
So a natural treatment for depression, exercise, omega-3 fatty acids, and learning not to believe every stupid thought you have. So the exercise is whenever you feel sad or mad or nervous or out of control, write down what you're thinking and then question it. And the act of writing it down helps to get it out of your head. And you know, so many times this week, I don't know why this week, but I'm working with patients, and it's like, he made me crazy. He made me depressed.
But then you're a victim.
She made me this. And I'm like, okay, so let's write that down.
Right.
And we ultimately change it to, I allowed him to make me crazy.
Because then you have control.
Because if you allowed it, then you can stop it. But the cognitive therapy part, or the therapy for your thoughts, is just a critical piece of that.
Two little things really quickly that I really like in addition to that are, you know, you and I talk a lot about this. Because I can get fairly intense with things. Seriously? Does this have eternal value? Am I going to care about this in 10 years or 20 years? Does it matter, really? If I'm not going to care about it in 5 years or whatever, why am I getting all worked up over it? It's not going to matter.
Right. Now, some things you will care about.
Some things are too big. If it's your child's health or, yes, okay, there are some things that are. But my computer crashing or whatever, it's just not worth it. So, and that's happened to me in the middle of a book, and I started to freak out, and then I'm like, you know what? 10 years from now, not going to matter. So it really helps me to bring it back to, into focus. And then the other thing is in addition to talking back to thoughts, focus on one thing you're grateful for, at least one thing, and really focus on it, because most of us have a lot to be grateful for.
Where your focus goes,
your energy flows.
Right. Awesome. You're listening to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. Welcome to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. I'm Dr. Daniel Amen.
And I'm Tana Amen.
Today we're going to talk about anxiety. And I know more about this than I want to know. So I grew up in a family of 7 children. So in 4 years, my mother had 4 children.
And 5 of them
are girls.
So I love to say that Daniel came housebroken and fully trained. I am grateful to his sisters. So yes, it's amazing.
But, and I'm not sure why, but I grew up with a lot of anxiety. And I don't think it's necessarily all the drama in my house.
Although there would be a lot of chaos with 5 girls.
There's a lot of chaos. And I'm third of 7 children, and I didn't get much attention because
7 kids is hard.
You know, the people who are special in a family. So the oldest child, and then the oldest girl and oldest boy, and then the youngest.
Right.
And so I had an older sister and an older brother, so that just meant I was completely not special. And my younger sister, the one that's just younger than I am, Jeannie, is 13 months younger than I am.
Right.
Which means when I was 4 months old, my mom got pregnant. And so, you know, if you just think about that sort of chaos, and I remember as a child, terribly conflict avoidant. I'd bite my fingernails until they bled.
Wow.
Had trouble speaking up in class because I didn't want people to think I was stupid. Plus, when I went to school, it wasn't a classroom of 20 children. I had 48 kids in my class.
Oh, wow.
They're, you know, 6 rows, 8 people deep, and we grew up seriously Catholic. So my mom was very serious about the whole thing. And there was always this sort of idea of hell and damnation and doing something wrong, and then confession, and then bad thoughts and judgment. And so I grew up actually feeling really anxious. And I think it's no wonder that when I decided to be a psychiatrist, I didn't really do it for me, you know, thinking, oh, this would really help me. I did it because someone I cared about tried to kill herself, and then I'm like, wow. And I just loved it. But I gravitated toward hypnosis.
Oh, interesting.
And doing hypnosis for my patients. I actually took a whole month elective in hypnosis at UC Irvine. And I found that when I would hypnotize people, I would get super relaxed. That I loved how I felt when I was putting people in a hypnotic trance, because I would go along with them.
Right.
And then I learned biofeedback. And biofeedback is where you use instruments to teach people to warm their hands, relax their muscles, decrease sweat gland activity, breathe diaphragmatically. And I was just amazed at how that helped me. I used to be scared to death in front of audiences, which is funny now because, you know, I was in front of 26,000 people
you love speaking.
Last year.
Right.
And, you know, I was at the American Airlines Arena in Dallas, and, you know, I didn't have like one flutter of anxiety. But before, because of worried about people judging me, and I remember if I used to hold my notes, they would shake in my hand because I would have that sort of motor overflow of anxiety.
Interesting.
And I love the fact that I've been able to conquer this. But it would come out in other ways too, because when you're anxious, you become masterful at predicting the worst possible thing. And now, you know, just thinking about it, I was one of those kids who wet his bed when he was little. So that means every single morning until I was about 10 years old, I woke up in a panic. Because it's like, did I, didn't I, what's the fallout? And my mom was never bad about it.
I've heard kids say that that's like traumatizing.
I mean, I have one person, I was actually testifying in a death penalty case, and Lewis killed 4 people in 11 days on a meth run. His brain was just awful. And he was a bedwetter. But, you know, as opposed to my mom, who handled it in a really rational way, except one time, which I'll tell you about. What they did with Lewis is they took him and his wet sheets and tied him to a tree outside in the neighborhood so everybody can see.
Oh, that's terrible.
And so they shamed him. So my mom took me to a urologist and said, what do you do? And now we have treatment for that. I treat many bedwetters.
There's medication that helps it.
Nasal spray called DDAVP or imipramine. Both of them work and take care of it, because you just have an immature
And there's a lot
bladder.
of reasons that can happen. In case anyone's listening, just go get it checked. Don't shame your child. Okay, this is...
Please don't do that.
Yes, because it's not that hard to treat.
And, so that obviously could have been the seeds to some of my anxiety. But she took me to a urologist who told her to make me drink lots of water and then prevent me from going to the bathroom so that I would expand my bladder.
My gosh.
And now I'm like always freaked out. I can't find the bathroom.
So they created another anxiety disorder.
So they completely created an anxiety disorder about it.
Oh.
And so, but when you have an anxiety disorder, you actually begin to start having anticipatory anxiety, or you begin to predict the worst possible thing that could happen. And I remember when I learned about cognitive therapy, or what we call ant therapy, that I used to be masterful at predicting the worst. So if I almost got into an accident, rather than saying, oh, thank God I didn't get into an accident, I would see somebody hitting my car, the car
you
exploding, the ambulance driver having ADD and getting lost on the way, and then I'd be burned over 90% of my body. I'd go to the hospital, and the nurse wouldn't even be cute, as she had to rip off the bandages in the burn unit. And now, when I realize that tendency, I just go, stop it.
So I have to jump in here because this is hilarious. This part I'm going to tell you is not hilarious. We're helping someone in our family who's going through a really serious crisis, and she's going through a program, and she does that, and it would make me crazy. I'm like, why are we doing these future, like, you're going so far into the future with things that have not happened? Stop it. I was like trying to coach her into this. Her new program, they said, stop future tripping. So I love that term. You were future tripping.
Oh, always. And then if you do anxiety-provoking work, like we do here at Amen Clinics, we do imaging. Most psychiatrists don't do that. But I had to learn to deal with my anxiety so that I could fight for the right to do the mission we do here at Amen Clinics, which is look at people's brains, which now it's just obvious that of course you should look, but at the time we were getting attacked. And if you have trouble dealing with conflict, then it's really hard to be a pioneer. And so let's talk about, how do you deal with anxiety? And actually, you're not immune to it. I remember when you were nine years old, that you actually had separation anxiety from your mom.
I've been through many periods in my life where I was racked with anxiety. So I completely get this. I don't think I'm as fearful of it as the depression, because it didn't make me want to die. Let's face it, I wanted to die with the depression. The anxiety, it can be paralyzing. But I think for me personally, not to the same level that the depression did. So, but you're the one who explained anxious ADD to me. So over anxious, over focused ADD. So no, I'm definitely not immune to it. It's what keeps me doing the right things. It's what keeps me from being late, even though I have ADD, or it keeps me from not turning things in, or I got straight A's in school. It's that anxiety that keeps me on track.
So you need some anxiety. So
I've
let's not get rid of anxiety altogether.
I've got a little bit more than normal, but.
So the things I've done that have really helped me, hypnosis. I just love it.
Me too. So
and
I'm a huge
on Brain
fan.
Fit Life. So if you want to listen to 6 hypnosis audios that I've done. So you are the person
who got me into hypnosis. Daniel created some hypnosis audios just for me for performance, because I used to have some performance anxiety in martial arts for my belt tests, and I just rocked them. And so I became a huge fan because I found them to be so relaxing, and I started using it in other areas of my life. So our hypnosis audios, I'm a huge fan.
So if you go to mybrainfitlife.com, you can sign up and learn more about that. We have hypnosis audios for anxiety, for sleep, for weight, for pain,
Performance too, right?
And performance. There's also brain-enhancing music. Some of the music you listen to will help you feel less anxious, more relaxed. Some music you listen to will make you feel more anxious. So the quality of the music you listen to really does matter. There are games on Brain Fit Life. My favorite one for anxiety is called My Calm Beat.
Oh, yeah, that's really good.
Which is a breathing pacer.
Right.
Because when people get anxious, they tend to breathe more with the upper part of their chest, and they tend to breathe faster, which will trigger your brain, something's wrong, be anxious.
Right.
And so we teach you to breathe diaphragmatically.
That
more
triggers
with
an
your
adrenaline
belly.
response as
and
opposed
if you
to...
set the pacer to about 5.5 breaths per minute,
right.
It's a relaxation
It's a great program.
It's a really great program. And then, of course, learning to kill the ants, the fortune-telling ants that steal your happiness. So whenever you're feeling anxious, write down whatever thought you have. And when you get anxious, try not to leave the situation. Because if you leave, unless, of course, it's dangerous. If it's dangerous, just leave. But if it's not dangerous, you're starting to have a panic attack in the grocery store, don't just leave.
Talk your way through it.
Try to stay, breathe diaphragmatically, think of warming images. Because we found that when we teach people to warm their hands, it's an immediate relaxation response. Sometimes just go to a sink and put on not hot water, but warm water, and that can have an immediate relaxation response.
So I want to jump in here for a second because this is a great example for acute anxiety. Like to teach people what anxiety does and how people can actually train yourself to not have the anxiety reaction, the adrenaline response. So I was attacked when I was 15 walking to high school. And what happens when people get attacked is they have this rush of this adrenaline response, the flight or fight reaction, right? Well, a lot of people shut down when that happens. Some people go crazy. I go crazy. So they go crazy and they just fight and they don't even know what they're doing, but they're just like going crazy fighting. But one of those two reactions usually happens. But that adrenaline reaction is what's happening in your body with a panic attack. So when you practice martial arts or soldiers or cops, these people, they all learn how to manage this adrenaline response. And there's a couple of things that happen instantly. So one of the things they taught us is, look, if you ever get attacked, that adrenaline response is going to kick in. It's why you don't fight immediately or you don't respond appropriately. Because when it kicks in, a couple things happen. You get tunnel vision instantly. You can't speak in sentences. You like monosyllabic, like one sound words come out of your mouth and you start to hyperventilate. Like you said, your breathing goes really fast. So what they started doing was training police officers and soldiers and martial artists who are trying to, like for self-defense, what they train you to do, they put you in stressful environments, and then what they instantly teach you to do, break that tunnel vision. So you want to look side to side, take 3 big deep breaths like you talked about. So you got to break the cycle that's happening. Break the tunnel vision, break that fast breathing, and then instantly try to ground yourself really quickly and then start to talk. And then if you can do that, you'll start to train that adrenaline response not to just take off, like to control you. You control the adrenaline response.
And I like what you said. Get control of your breathing. So take a big breath, 5 seconds in, hold it for 2 seconds. Blow it out, but take 5 seconds to blow it out.
Right.
Hold it out for 2 seconds.
And belly breathe.
And repeat that just 3 or 4 or 5 times, and it can break a panic attack. So many things you can do. You don't have to live with anxiety that ultimately steals your happiness and your health. You're listening to The Brain Warrior's Way. Stay with us.
Thank you for listening to the Brain Warrior's Way podcast. We have a special gift for you. It's an opportunity to win an evaluation at the Amen clinics. All you have to do is subscribe to this podcast, leave a review, and rate us on iTunes.
To learn more about Amen Clinics and the work we do, go to amenclinics.com. You can also learn about our nutraceutical products at brainmdhealth.com. Thanks for listening.